There are mysteries that haunt us because they are violent. And then there are mysteries that haunt us because they simply make no sense. Mysteries where the clues don't add up. Mysteries where the logic of human behavior seems to completely dissolve. Imagine you are a search and rescue officer. It is the spring of 1978. You are hiking through the deep snow of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. You are looking for 5 missing men. They vanished 3 months ago. You find a trailer, a Forest Service shelter buried in the drifts. You break the window, you climb inside, and you find a scene that defies every instinct of survival. You find the body of a man. He is wrapped in a sheet. He has no shoes on. He has starved to death. He has lost nearly 100 pounds. But when you look around the trailer, your blood runs cold. Because the shelves are lined with military sea rations, cans of food, enough to feed 5 men for a year. There is a propane tank outside, full of gas, ready to heat the trailer. There are matches on the table. There is wood in the corner. This man didn't die because he was trapped. He didn't die because he had no resources. He lay in a bed, freezing and starving, while the means to save his life were literally within arm's reach. Why didn't he open the cans? Why didn't he turn on the heat? Why did 5 men, who were driving home from a basketball game on a clear night, suddenly drive 50 miles up a mountain road into a snowstorm, abandon a perfectly working car, and walk into the darkness to die? Was it fear? Was it madness? Or was there something else in those woods that night that forced them to choose freezing over returning to the car? This is the story of the Yuba County Five. It is often called the American Dyatlov Pass. It is a story of a fun night out that turned into a surreal nightmare. And it is a story that suggests that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the wilderness isn't the cold, it's the human mind. If you are fascinated by unsolved mysteries, psychological anomalies, and the eerie silence of the deep woods, please hit that subscribe ** button right now. You need to hear this story, because almost 50 years later, we still don't know what they were running from. To understand the tragedy, we have to meet the boys. They were called boys by their families, but they were grown men. They ranged in age from 24 to 32. Ted Weiher ** 32 was the gentle giant. He loved waving at strangers. He lacked common sense but had a big heart. Jack Madruga * 30 was the driver. He was an Army veteran. He was responsible, proud of his turquoise Mercury Montego, and never let anyone else drive it. Bill Sterling * 29 was deeply religious and loved reading. Hewitt Pannell * 24 was the youngest, very close to his mother. Gary Mathias * 25 was the outlier. He was an Army veteran too, but he had a history of mental health struggles and drug use, though he was currently stable and taking medication. They all lived in Yuba City, California. They all had mild intellectual disabilities or learning delays. They lived with their parents. They worked simple jobs. But they were high-functioning. They played sports. They had friends. They were a team. They played for the Gateway Gators, a basketball team for the Special Olympics. And they were excited. Because the very next day, Saturday, February 25, 1978, they were scheduled to play the first game of a week-long tournament in Los Angeles. The winner would get a free week in the city. They had their uniforms laid out on their beds. They were ready to win. Friday, February 24, 1978. The 5 men piled into Jack Madruga's prized 1969 Mercury Montego. They drove 50 miles north to Chico, California, to watch a college basketball game. They were happy. They cheered for the home team. After the game, they did what any group of friends would do. They stopped at a gas station market. They bought snacks, Hostess cherry pies, Langendorf lemon pies, a Snickers bar, a quart of milk, 2 Pepsis. The clerk watched them. They were laughing. They were normal. They got back in the car. It was around 10:00 p.m. They should have turned south, back toward Yuba City. It was an easy, straight drive down Highway 99. They should have been home by 11:00 p.m. Their parents waited up. 11:00 p.m. passed. Midnight passed. By morning, the beds were still empty. The uniforms were still laid out. The panic set in. The families called the police. The boys are missing. A massive search began. Police searched the route between Chico and Yuba City. They found nothing, no skid marks, no accidents, no car. It was as if the turquoise Mercury had been abducted by aliens. But 3 days later, on February 28, a park ranger made a baffling discovery. He found the car, but he didn't find it on the highway. He found it 70 miles away from Chico, deep in the Plumas National Forest. The car was parked on a rugged, unpaved mountain road called the Oroville-Quincy Road. This road goes nowhere. It goes up into the high peaks of the Sierra Nevada. Why were they there? Why would Jack Madruga, a man who hated getting his car dirty, drive his sedan up a rocky, snow-covered logging road in the middle of the night? The police inspected the car. And this is where the mystery deepens. The car was not stuck. The tires spun a little in the snow, but 5 strong men could have easily pushed it out. The gas tank was a quarter full. The engine started immediately. The undercarriage was pristine. This is crucial. The road was full of bumps and rocks. If a driver drove fast or recklessly, the bottom of the car would be scraped. It wasn't. This meant the driver had navigated this treacherous road carefully, slowly, and with purpose. But why? The windows were rolled down. The doors were unlocked. Inside, they found the wrappers of the snacks they bought. They found the maps in the glove box, but the glove box was locked. But the men were gone. They had abandoned a working, heated car to walk into a blizzard. The police were stumped, but then a witness came forward. A man named Joseph Schons. Schons had been up on that mountain road the same night, checking the snow levels for his ski lodge. His car had gotten stuck around 5:30 p.m. While he was trying to push his car out, he suffered a mild heart attack. He lay in his car in pain, waiting for help. Around midnight, he saw lights. A car coming up the road behind him. He saw the headlights. He saw the car stop about 20 feet behind him. He also saw another set of lights, maybe a pickup truck, behind that car. Schons yelled for help. "Hey, help me!" The lights went out. The voices stopped. Schons said he saw a group of men standing in the glow of the headlights. He also said he heard a woman's voice and maybe a baby crying, though this part is debated and could be delirium from pain. When he yelled, the men didn't help him. They went silent. They turned off their lights. Schons stayed in his car all night, terrified. In the morning, he walked down the mountain. He passed the Mercury Montego. It was empty. Why did the boys see a man in distress and hide? Were they afraid of him? Or were they afraid of whoever was in the pickup truck behind them? The search for the men was hampered. by a massive blizzard that hit the next day. The snow buried any footprints. The search helicopters couldn't fly. The police searched for days, but the forest is vast and unforgiving. They found nothing. The families waited in agony. Spring arrived, the snow began to melt. And in June 1978, the forest finally gave up its secrets. A group of motorcyclists were riding deep in the woods, about 19 miles further up the mountain from where the car was found. They stumbled upon an old Forest Service trailer. It was a shelter used by rangers in the summer. They smelled something terrible. They broke a window and looked in. On a bed, wrapped tightly in sheets from head to toe, was a body. It was Ted Weiher, the gentle giant. The condition of his body told a horrifying story of endurance and madness. Ted had not died quickly. His beard had grown nearly an inch, suggesting he had lived for 8 to 13 weeks after the disappearance. His feet were badly frostbitten. He had lost nearly 100 pounds. He went from 200 pounds to barely 100 pounds. He had starved to death. But here is the detail that keeps investigators awake at night. The trailer was stocked. There was a locker in the trailer filled with sea rations, cans of fruit, spaghetti, stew. Ted or someone with him had opened a few cans, about 12. But they had used a military P-38 can opener. They stopped eating. There were dozens of cans left unopened. Why? Were they afraid to open the locker? Did they think it was stealing? Even worse, there was a propane tank outside. It was valve-operated. All they had to do was turn the valve, and the trailer would have been warm. They didn't touch it. There was a fireplace and matches. They didn't light a fire. They lay in the freezing dark, slowly dying of hunger, while surrounded by food and heat. The investigators searched the area around the trailer. The next day, they found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. They were found about 11 miles from the car, on the road to the trailer. They had been scavenged by animals. Only bones remained. It appeared they had died of hypothermia on the hike up. Jack was found with the car keys in his pocket. He had held onto them until the end. 2 days later, they found Hewitt Panel. Or rather, they found his backbone. He was found just outside the trailer. It seemed he and Ted had made it to the trailer, but Hewitt had died or tried to leave for help and succumbed to the elements. But where was Gary Mathias? Gary was the one with the military experience. He was the one who knew how to survive outdoors. He was the one who could have opened the cans. His tennis shoes were found inside the trailer. This suggests he might have taken Ted's leather boots, which were missing, to go for help. Gary Mathias was never found. His body remains somewhere in those mountains to this day. So what happened? Why did they drive up there? Why did they run into the woods? Why didn't they eat the food? There are many theories, but none of them are fully satisfying. Theory 1, the accidental turn. They missed the turn for Yuba City. They drove too far. They got confused. They drove up the mountain road to turn around, got spooked by the snow, and abandoned the car. Problem: Jack knew the area, and the car wasn't stuck. Theory 2, the chase. This is the most popular theory among the families. They believe the men were chased. Maybe they got into an altercation at the gas station. Maybe someone followed them. This would explain why they drove up a remote road to escape. It would explain why they abandoned the car. They saw lights behind them, Schons. and thought it was the pursuers, so they ran into the woods to hide. It would explain the fear. Theory 3. The learned helplessness. This explains the trailer. Psychologists suggest that because these men, except Gary, had spent their lives being cared for by parents, being told what to do, they lacked the initiative to break rules in a crisis. They might have seen the food locker as locked or not theirs. They might have been waiting for permission to eat. Ted Weiher was known to lack common sense. If nobody told him to turn on the gas, he wouldn't do it. It is a heartbreaking thought that their innocence and obedience is what killed them. Theory 4. The Gary Mathias factor asterisk. Gary had schizophrenia. If he missed his medication, which he did, he could become paranoid or delusional. Did Gary have an episode? Did he convince the others they were being chased? Did he lead them on a mission into the woods? Did he keep them in the trailer, telling them it wasn't safe to leave? It is possible that the leader of the group became the architect of their doom, not out of malice, but out of illness. The most painful part of this story is the proximity to life. When Ted Weiher was found, he had his shoes off. Someone had wrapped him in the sheet. This implies he was cared for. Someone, likely Gary, was with him for a long time. They watched him fade. They sat in that trailer, listening to the wind, shivering, perhaps telling stories of the basketball game they never played. They had the tools to survive. They just didn't have the key to unlock their own survival instincts. The Yuba County 5 mystery is a hidden documentary subject because it challenges our understanding of survival. We assume survival is about physical strength. But this story proves that survival is 90% mental. It is about decision-making. It is about the ability to adapt. These men had the physical strength to hike 19 miles in deep snow, an incredible feat in dress shoes. But they didn't have the mental framework to save themselves once they reached safety. It is also a story about the vulnerability of the disabled. In 1978, the world wasn't as understanding. They were the boys. And in the end, they died like lost children, waiting for an adult to come and save them. Today, the road is still there. The forest is still silent. Gary Mathias is still missing. The families passed away one by one, never knowing the truth. The American Dyatlov Pass remains an open wound in the history of unexplained disappearances. It serves as a chilling reminder that you can have a working car, a full tank of gas, and a pantry full of food, and still lose everything if fear takes the wheel. This story is deeply unsettling. The image of the man starving next to the can of food is tragic beyond words. What do you think happened? Were they chased, or was it a tragic mental health crisis? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you are intrigued by these deep dive mysteries into the human psyche, please hit that asterisk like asterisk button and subscribe asterisk. I have a story coming next week about a lighthouse where 3 keepers vanished, leaving a meal untouched on the table. Stay safe, check your maps, and always trust your gut.